Trespassing upon a privately owned vehicle parked on a public street to place a chalk mark to begin gathering information to ultimately impose a government sanction is unconstitutional under the Fourth Amendment. End of quote. A 3-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit unanimously agreed. Chalking tires is a kind of trespass, Judge Bernice Donald wrote for the panel, and it requires a warrant. The decision affects the Sixth Circuit, which includes Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. The Fourth Amendment protects people from unreasonable searches and seizures. To determine whether a violation has occurred, the court first asks whether the government's conduct counts as a search. If so, it asks whether the search was reasonable. The court found that chalking is indeed a search for purposes of the Fourth Amendment because government officials physically trespass upon a constitutionally protected area to obtain information. Just as the Supreme Court ruled in 2012 that sticking a GPS tracker to a car counted as a search, so is marking a tire with chalk to figure out how long it has been parked. That, according to the court's opinion.
Good, I like that.
And that search was not reasonable, the court said. The city searches vehicles, quote, that are parked legally without probable cause or even so much as individualized suspicion of wrongdoing, the touchstone of the reasonableness standard, end of quote. Again, that's the court saying that. Ellison, the attorney who brought the case, told the Associated Press, quote, "We don't think everyone deserves free parking, but the process Saginaw selected is unconstitutional. I'm very glad the 3 judges who got this case took it seriously. It affects so many people." End of quote. Law professor Orrin Kerr, noting that he had never seen a chalking case before, said parking enforcement officers could sidestep the constitutional issue altogether by simply taking a photo of the car rather than using chalk. He wrote, quote, "That way parking enforcement can learn the placement of the car without physically marking it." End of quote. On her Facebook page, Taylor, the recipient of frequent parking tickets, delighted in the fact that future law students would get to read about her case while studying the Fourth Amendment. She wrote this, quote, "That's definitely the most exciting part. I've helped change the law." End of quote.
Kudos.
Yep.
I like that. Darren, we last week were defending Assange, and it's kind of an issue that's lost a lot of momentum.
Mm-hmm.
But we pointed out one of the greatest disclosures he gave was a video showing innocent kids and journalists mowed down from a helicopter while the shooters giggled and found it to be entertaining. We said that that's the kind of pushback to power and the exposure that a journalist in this day and age is very, very rarely seen. And that's why in my book he is noteworthy. He is a great help to us understanding the dark side of the curtain. Okay, now here's a story that would corroborate those kinds of actions. This is April 25th. That was yesterday. Navy SEALs tried for months to report a superior for war crimes and were told to let it go.
And where are you reading this from?
This is from Democracy Now!
Okay.
Here's a story that I've been watching for some time. I heard about this some time ago because it was so brazen. This was a soldier standing watching a citizen being tended by a medic who jumped up with his hunting knife and stabbed him in the neck. Then lo and behold, they discovered that he had done this. He had killed hundreds of innocent civilians. Navy SEALs who witnessed their platoon chief commit war crimes in Iraq were encouraged not to speak out. They were told they would lose their jobs for reporting him at a private meeting with a superior officer last year, according to reports from the New York Times. A confidential Navy criminal investigation, however, obtained by the Times, reveals that the commandos saw Special Operations Chief Edward Gallagher stab and kill an unarmed teenage captive, shot to death a young girl and old man, and fired indiscriminately into crowds of civilians. But when the men of Gallagher's team called a private meeting with their troop commander and demanded an investigation, they were told to be quiet on the matter, and no action was taken. The group of 7 SEALs eventually were able to force an investigation, and Edward Gallagher was arrested in September on more than a dozen charges, including premeditated murder and attempted murder. Now, I'm going to skip down here to the actual interview, okay? I think this is amazing. The court-martial centers, this is Amy Goodman, the court-martial centers on a charge that Gallagher stabbed to death a teenager member of the Islamic State while the unarmed youth was being treated by a medic. Gallagher allegedly also photographed members of his platoon posing with the corpse in what was dubbed a re-enlistment ceremony. Gallagher then reportedly texted a photo of the dead captive to another SEAL, saying, quote, "Good story behind this. I got him with my hunting knife."
Wow.
According to legal filings obtained by the New York Times, 2 other SEAL petty officers have said Gallagher had bragged about killing, and this is a quote, 10 to 20 people a day of innocent civilians. A fellow sniper told investigators Gallagher claimed, and quoted, he averaged 3 kills a day of innocent people, my insertion, over 80 days. The investigation also unveiled the words Eddie G. puts the laughter in manslaughter were once scrawled on the wall of a kill site in Mosul, Iraq.
Wow.
And these are the guys our local police forces will hire in a New York minute when they return. I repeat to you, this guy had written on a wall that Eddie G puts the laughter in manslaughter, manslaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And it was scrawled on a wall at one of his kill sites in Iraq.
Wow.
Now, we wouldn't know about this. Not many people know about these travesties. If it wasn't for journalists, like I must say, the journalists that prepared this, you're not going to see any coverage of this go very far. But WikiLeaks took an actual film. Mm-hmm. We have to take somebody's testimony that this guy took his hunting knife out and stabbed a 15-year-old in the neck. We have to take the words for it. But Assange has, if you've never seen it, you can go get it. You can see it in a minute online.
Mm-hmm.
The tape of innocent people being blown away by American soldiers.
Yeah.
This is the kind of journalism that is lacking. This story, the only story I could think of, because I was trying to think of a douchebag, this has no personal character except maybe this murder.
Yeah.
That was even worse is the sexual abuse now with the Catholic Church that's blown sky high while we're collecting billions of dollars to rebuild the theological Disneyland there in Notre Dame.
Yep.
Not going to take time to read that. But both of these stories are, again, a mustard and water story, and we know what we're talking about.
Yep. Make you throw up. I want to get to this. This is by ProPublica. This is by Brenda Medina and Thomas Frank. This is dated April 17th. Headline reads, TSA agents say they're not discriminating against black women, but their body scanners might be. This is a story, and this has been documented multiple times. I want to read this here. Dorian Wanzer travels frequently for work, and almost every time she steps out of an airport body scanner, security screeners pull her aside and run their fingers through her hair. It's called a hair pat-down. Wanzer, who lives in Washington, D.C., said, quote, it happens with my natural afro when I have braids or two-strand twists, regardless. At this point in my life, I have come to expect it, but that doesn't make it less any invasive and frustrating. End of quote. Wanzer, who had her hair patted down by Transportation Security Administration officers 2 weeks ago while she flew home from Raleigh, North Carolina, said she feels singled out when she is asked to step aside. Wanzer said, quote, when you find yourself in that kind of situation, it makes you wonder, is this for security or am I being profiled for my race? End of quote. Black women have been raising alarms for years about being forced to undergo intrusive, degrading searches of their hair at airport security checkpoints. After a complaint 5 years ago, the TSA pledged to improve oversight and training for its workers on hair pat-downs. But it turns out there's an issue beyond the screeners, the machines themselves. The futuristic full-body scanners that have become standard at airports across the United States are prone to false alarms for hairstyles popular among women of color. In a request to vendors last summer, the TSA asked for ideas to improve the screening of headwear and hair in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Title VI bars federally funded agencies and programs from discriminating, even unintentionally, on the basis of race, color, or national origin. 2 officers interviewed by ProPublica said the machine's alarms are frequently triggered by certain hairstyles. A TSA officer who works at an airport in Texas who asked not to be identified said, quote, With black females, the scanner alarms more because they have thicker hair. Many times they have braids or dreadlocks. Maybe down the line they will be redesigning the technology so it can tell apart what's a real threat and what is not. But for now, we officers have to do what the machine can't. End of quote. A government report in 2014 found that the machines also had a higher false alarm rate when passengers wore turbans and wigs. Asked about the false alarms, the TSA sent in a statement to ProPublica that the agency, quote, is reviewing additional options for the screening of hair, end of quote. A senior TSA official said in an interview that hair pat-downs are not discriminatory and are done when a body scanner indicates that a passenger has an object in his or her hair. The official, who agreed to be interviewed on the condition that she not be named, said, quote, I get a hair pat-down every time I travel. I'm a white woman. Procedures require that if there is an alarm on the technology, the pat-down must be conducted, end of quote. She added that the agency has found no evidence of discrimination in hair pat-downs or any pattern that pointed to a particular airport. The TSA advises passengers to remove all items from their hair before going through airport security and warns on its website that wearing a hair piece, extensions, or a wig, as well as a ponytail, a hair bun, or braids may trigger an alarm. The TSA would not say if it had ever found a weapon in a passenger's hair, but on their website wrote this, quote, you'd be surprised what can be hidden in hair. The most notable things we're looking for in hair are explosives and improvised explosive device components, end of quote. Unbelievable. So the hair, it's all the hair. Oh, jeez. Oh, man, I tell you what, we got to get out of here. We've got so much that we got to cover, and unfortunately we don't get to a lot of it in time, but we'll definitely cover this topic and more next week when we're back with you. And
nothing hiding in my hair.
I don't have any hair left for anything to hide in. All right, we'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Jack Prince.
For our announcer, Kristen Cook, support independent media and the First Amendment.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.